I never thought that a spilled coffee and a failed lab test could redefine my entire life. There I was, standing in the sterile brightness of the medical trial facility, my hands shaking like I had just been caught sneaking candy in a classroom again. My name is Eli Thompson, a 23-year-old Omega who trips over his own shadow more often than not. And somehow, I was about to meet someone who would turn my world upside down. The facility was unnervingly quiet, the kind of silence that presses against your ears until your own heartbeat sounds like a drum solo. I glanced down at my clipboard, pretending I wasn't completely terrified of the strange machinery humming softly in the corners. That's when I noticed him. A tall, composed figure adjusting a lab coat with an almost imperceptible smirk, like he already knew exactly how chaotic I was. New participant? His voice was calm, confident, yet it carried a warmth that immediately made me feel both exposed and strangely safe. He extended a hand strong, firm, with fingers that somehow felt like they could steady the entire world if I let them. Yeah, I stammered, clutching the clipboard as though it were a shield. Eli Thompson. Lucas Rivera. I'll be your guide, I guess. Well, not in life, just for the trial. His grin softened the word guide into something intimate, teasing, like he was already a few steps ahead in a dance I didn't yet know the steps to. From the very first day, Lucas had this uncanny ability to make me feel both ridiculous and noticed. He noticed when my pen was always 2 inches from falling off the table, when my shoelaces were hopelessly tangled, or when I blinked too many times trying to process instructions. He would quietly adjust them, or hand me a new pen, or tie my laces without a word, letting me stew in my own embarrassment while somehow communicating, without a single syllable, that I wasn't alone. Days blurred together as the trial progressed, a medical experiment that involved hormones, neural scans, and a lot of sterile white corridors. And yet, amidst the beeping monitors and the hum of machinery, Lucas and I found fleeting moments that felt startlingly human. I caught him staring sometimes, a subtle curiosity in his gaze, as if he were trying to memorize the rhythm of my panic or the pattern of my nervous tics. I hated being caught, yet secretly I craved it. One rainy afternoon, when the sun refused to shine and the sky was nothing but gray, Lucas cornered me near the lab's small balcony. "You're more complicated than the data suggests," he said quietly, almost to himself. I felt my face heat up, and my usual clumsy response bubbled out before I could stop it. "Yeah, well, the data doesn't usually care if I'm scared of slipping on wet floors or spilling chemicals on my shoes." My voice came out higher than intended, and I immediately wanted to sink into the floor. Lucas chuckled softly, that deep, infectious sound that made my chest tighten. "I like that about you," he said, eyes locked onto mine. "I like that you're real, messy, honest." My heart stuttered, and for a moment, the world reduced to the rain-drenched balcony, the hum of the lab behind us, and Lucas's gaze holding me captive. And then it happened, a small misstep, my foot sliding on the wet tiles, and before I knew it, I was falling, arms flailing in desperation. Lucas's hands caught me mid-fall, his body pressing against mine in a perfectly timed rescue that sent my brain into chaos. I smelled the faint hint of his cologne, felt the steady warmth of his chest against mine, and suddenly every lab rule, every social rule, every cautious thought in my head evaporated. "You okay?" he asked, voice calm but his eyes betraying a flicker of concern. I nodded, words failing me as I clung to his arm like a lifeline. I had never wanted to fall into anyone like that, never wanted to be so utterly dependent, yet in that moment, the idea of letting go and trusting him seemed like the most natural thing in the world. From that day on, the dynamic between us shifted imperceptibly. Lucas's presence became a constant, a subtle anchor in my otherwise turbulent life. And then came the unexpected results of the trial: hormonal shifts, neurological changes, a sudden, unpredicted alteration that turned my omega physiology into something closer to beta. I was terrified. This was supposed to be temporary, scientific, controlled. Yet the more my body changed, the more I noticed Lucas watching me with something deeper than professional curiosity. "You're different," he said one evening as we walked through the city park, autumn leaves crunching beneath our feet. The setting sun painted the sky in gold and crimson, a perfect backdrop to my spiraling thoughts. But in a good way, in a beautiful way. I laughed nervously, rubbing the back of my neck. I think I just ruined everything. I'm not supposed to be like this, not with you. Lucas stopped walking, turning to face me. His hand reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my forehead, and my breath caught in my throat. You haven't ruined anything. You've just grown into someone I want to know even more. And just like that, the trial, the awkward missteps, the chaos of my existence, all of the universe seemed to condense into that moment. The air between us shimmered with unspoken promises, a magnetic pull that neither science nor caution could explain. Over the next weeks, as my body settled into its new beta rhythm, our bond deepened in ways I hadn't dared to imagine. There were late-night talks over lukewarm coffee, quiet laughter echoing down empty hospital corridors, the gentle brush of hands that lingered just a second too long. Lucas became both my anchor and my storm, the person who grounded me while also sweeping me off my feet emotionally, mentally, and now physiologically. The city became our playground, from bustling streets to quiet, dimly lit bookstores where we would get lost among the shelves, exchanging small smiles and accidental touches. And every time I looked at him, I was reminded that life had a strange sense of humor, turning a clumsy, flustered omega like me into something unrecognizable, something desired, and putting Lucas, who I had initially only seen as confident and untouchable, right there beside me, equally vulnerable in his own ways. One evening, sitting on the park bench under a canopy of twinkling lights, Lucas reached over and took my hand. His fingers intertwined with mine naturally, without hesitation, as though they had always belonged there. You know, he murmured, his thumb brushing against the back of my hand, I think this trial did more than change you. Changed us. Made us. Inevitable. I smiled, heart swelling with a mixture of relief, joy, and awe. For the first time in my chaotic, stumble-filled life, I felt like I belonged not just in my own skin, but here, in this shared space of trust, affection, and something unmistakably electric between two souls. And in that quiet moment, the city lights sparkling around us, the breeze carrying the scent of autumn leaves, I realized that being clumsy, being unexpectedly transformed, being completely vulnerable had led me to the most beautiful outcome of all. Lucas and I, tangled hands, laughing eyes, hearts beating in rhythm. Two people imperfectly perfect for each other, proving that sometimes life's mistakes are the sweetest kind of miracle. The weeks following the trial's conclusion were surreal. My transformation wasn't just physiological, it was emotional. A tidal wave of newfound confidence, new boundaries, and unexpected desires. I still stumbled, of course. Tripping over my own feet was practically a habit I couldn't shake. But now, with Lucas by my side, every fall felt like an opportunity for him to catch me, not just physically, but emotionally too. Lucas seemed to thrive on these small, intimate interactions. He wasn't the kind to overstate his affection, but the way he lingered nearby when I adjusted my jacket for the third time, or the way his fingers brushed mine in passing, made it clear that his feelings were deepening. And yet, despite all the warmth, there remained a subtle tensiona, careful dance between what was permissible, professional, and what was undeniably personal. One Friday evening, after the lab had closed and the city's hum had softened to a whisper, Lucas and I found ourselves wandering into a small diner, tucked between a laundromat and a 24-hour pharmacy. The neon sign flickered above us, casting a soft pink glow across his face. You really like diners, don't you? I asked, trying to keep my tone light, though my heart was pounding. Only the ones where the coffee is terrible and the pie is surprisingly good, he replied with a smirk. I like the charm, the imperfection. Reminds me of, well, people like you. I choked on my laughter, nearly spilling the coffee I had just ordered. People like me? Clumsy, slightly neurotic, yet endearing beyond reason, Lucas said, leaning across the table. His gaze softened, and for a fleeting moment, the world outside disappeared. People who make me feel alive. I couldn't respond immediately. My usual repertoire of sarcastic quips had abandoned me in the face of something so raw, so open. Instead, I just smiled, a quiet, trembling acknowledgement of what his words meant. Our walks home were always longer than necessary. The city had this peculiar way of stretching time when you were with someone whose presence made the air itself feel different. That night, the streets were slick with rain, reflecting neon signs and passing headlights. I was acutely aware of every brush of our shoulders, every time our fingers accidentally intertwined. "You're still a little surprised by all this, aren't you?" Lucas murmured, his voice barely audible over the gentle patter of rain. I nodded, unable to speak. How could I articulate the whirlwind inside Meth? Fear, the exhilaration, the undeniable longing to bridge the distance between us. Lucas smiled, a slow, knowing curl of his lips. "Good," he said softly, "because I want you to stay amazed, to remember how it feels to be chosen, deliberately, not by fate or experiment, but by someone who sees you, really sees you." The word chosen hit me harder than I expected. In a life that had often felt like a series of accidents, failures, and minor humiliations, to be chosen, really intentionally chosen, was almost intoxicating. I wanted to tell him, to confess that he had become my anchor, my storm, my constant, and my chaos all at once. But words, as always, failed me. Days bled into nights, each one a carefully constructed mosaic of awkward hand brushes, lingering gazes, and quiet confessions hidden in small gestures. Lucas had this habit of leaving subtle notes in my locker at the lab, scribbled on scraps of paper, little drawings, or single words that only I would understand. They weren't grand declarations, but they were intimate enough to feel like a private world had sprung up around us, one that existed solely in the pauses between our regular lives. Then came the first night that truly changed everything. The city had been blanketed in fog, the streetlights casting halos over the damp pavement. Lucas and I had been walking in silence, hands brushing occasionally, until we reached the edge of a quiet park. The usual sounds of children and distant traffic were gone, leaving us enveloped in a rare stillness. Without thinking, I reached for his hand. This time, it wasn't an accident. My fingers threaded through his, tentative at first, then with growing confidence. Lucas didn't flinch. He didn't hesitate. Instead, he turned to me with that smile, warm, open, and disarmingly tender. "You're braver than you think," he said. His thumb traced the back of my hand, sending shivers down my spine. "And I've been waiting for you to realize it." I laughed softly, almost in disbelief. "And what if I fall again?" Lucas pulled me closer, the space between us shrinking until our foreheads touched. "Then I'll catch you. Every time." The intimacy of that night was different from anything we had experienced before. There was no need for words, no need for careful restraint. Just two souls, perfectly in sync, exploring the edges of their feelings, leaning on each other as though gravity itself had shifted in our favor. The days following were a delicate dance of emotions, uncertainty, and quiet revelations. Lucas was patient, never pushing, yet always present in ways that mattered most. An accidental touch, a lingering glance, a warm smile that seemed to understand my every insecurity. I, in turn, found myself growing bolder, more aware of the power of my own presence and of the delicate balance we had achieved. It wasn't long before the first kiss happened, not in the dramatic fashion of movies, but quietly, under the amber glow of the diner's neon lights. Our lips met with hesitant curiosity, then deepened with a shared urgency that surprised us both. The city around us faded once again, leaving only the quiet rhythm of our hearts, the heat of our breath, and the certainty that something irreversible had begun. After that night, our bond became undeniable, shifting from subtle hints to open acknowledgement. The trial, the changes, the chaos, they had all led us to this point. Lucas and I moved through the world with a new kind of intimacy, exploring the city, the lab, and each other's lives with a sense of wonder. Our conversations stretched long into the night, filled with confessions, dreams, and laughter that echoed through empty streets. One particularly golden afternoon, as we sat on the steps of a quiet museum, Lucas nudged me with his shoulder. You know, it's funny, he said, eyes glinting with mischief. I always thought I was the one who had to lead, to guide. But somehow you've changed that, made me follow in a way that feels right. I blinked, a smile tugging at my lips. I guess we're just good at falling into each other's chaos, I said, lightly bumping my shoulder against his. He laughed a low, delighted sound that warmed my chest. Exactly, and I wouldn't have it any other way. The rest of the afternoon was a blur of shared glances, playful teasing, and small, tender touches. The city around us seemed to fade into the background, leaving only the two of us in a bubble of warmth, affection, and slowly building desire. Even the mundane became magical. Grocery runs, late-night coffee shops, rainy evenings walking home all transformed into moments charged with intimacy and subtle romance. Every accidental brush, every shared laugh, every lingering gaze reinforced the truth neither of us could deny. We had become indispensable to one another, two halves forming a whole in a way neither science nor fate could have predicted. And yet, the emotional intensity of our connection came with its own challenges. My past insecurities, Lucas's guarded tendencies, and the sudden physiological changes I had undergone all created moments of doubt, tension, and fear. There were nights when I would wake, heart racing, convinced I had ruined everything by being too forward, too vulnerable, too me. Lucas, however, was a constant reassurance. His presence a balm that quieted my insecurities and reminded me that our connection was real, enduring, and worth every awkward step we had taken together. Then came the night that truly solidified everything, the night we laughed until dawn, sitting atop a grassy hill overlooking the city. Lights twinkled below like a constellation scattered across the earth, and the stars above mirrored the infinite possibilities that stretched before us. I never thought an omega like me could. This, I said quietly, resting my head on his shoulder. Lucas tilted his head, brushing a hand through my hair. This is not about omega or beta or trials or changes. It's about heart, about choosing each other every day, in spite of everything. I closed my eyes, letting the truth of his words wash over me. For the first time, I felt complete, not because I had been transformed physically, or because a trial had dictated my path, but because Lucas had chosen me. Because, in all my clumsiness, all my chaos, all my imperfections, I had found someone who not only accepted me but celebrated me. The city slept beneath us, oblivious to the quiet miracle unfolding on that hill. Two people, once strangers, now intertwined in a bond forged through laughter, vulnerability, and the unpredictable whims of life itself. And as the dawn crept over the horizon, painting the sky in soft pastels, I realized that every stumble, every awkward moment, every fearful thought had been leading me here to this, to him, to us. Lucas shifted slightly, pressing a gentle kiss to the top of my head. Eli, he whispered, voice thick with emotion. We're going to be okay. More than okay. We're going to be amazing. I smiled, feeling a warmth that reached beyond skin and bone into the very core of who I was. Yeah, I murmured, intertwining my fingers with his. We really are. The wind rustled through the grass, carrying away old fears, leaving only the soft, unshakable truth of our connection. In that quiet, fleeting moment, I understood that life's most unexpected twists, the spilled coffee, the failed trials, the awkward first steps, had all led to something far greater than I could have imagined. A love that was messy, real, tender, and entirely our own. And as the first light of morning touched the city, Lucas and I sat together, hearts aligned, souls intertwined, ready to face whatever the world might throw at us, because together, we were unstoppable, unbreakable, and irrevocably in love. Idly, his thumb brushing the back of my hand, sending a shiver of anticipation up my spine. And I've been waiting for you to realize it. I laughed softly, my nerves melting into a warmth I had never known. I guess I needed a little push. Lucas tilted his head, eyes glinting with humor and affection. Or maybe just someone to believe in you when you couldn't believe in yourself. That moment became a quiet turning point. From then on, the hesitancy between us began to fade. Our touches lingered longer, our smiles held more meaning, and our conversations slipped into the personal in ways I never imagined. For the first time, I felt like someone could truly see Menet the awkward Omega who spilled coffee, tripped on sidewalks, and stumbled over his words, but the whole, complicated, imperfect version of me. And Lucas? He had become indispensable, a person I craved to be near, whose presence felt like the only safe place in a world that had often been harsh and unforgiving. The city itself seemed to conspire with our emotions. We discovered little pockets of wonder-hidden bookshops, quiet alleys covered in ivy, small cafes tucked away from the rush of everyday life. Every mundane outing became extraordinary because of the way we navigated it together, with shared glances, playful touches, and inside jokes that cemented our private universe. One evening, we attended a rooftop party overlooking the skyline. Music thumped faintly, laughter drifting in waves, but Lucas and I found a quiet corner, our shoulders brushing as we watched the city lights flicker below. You know, he murmured, I used to think I had to be in control of everything, life, people, situations, but with you, I don't care about control anymore. I blinked, heart clenching. You're not disappointed. His smile was tender, almost reverent. Disappointed? Never. You've changed my world, Eli, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Later that night, walking home under the soft glow of streetlights, our hands intertwined naturally. For the first time, I felt fully aware of what it meant to trust someone so completely. My heart no longer stuttered in fear, but raced in anticipation. I wasn't just falling for Lucas, I was learning to rely on him, to love him, to exist in the safety of his arms and the clarity of his understanding. As the weeks rolled on, life outside our small cocoon of intimacy began to intrude. Friends, work obligations, and the lingering questions about the trial's long-term effects reminded us that reality still existed. Yet, every obstacle only seemed to strengthen our bond. Lucas had this unwavering patience, a quiet assurance that even the most difficult days could be weathered if we faced them together. The real test came unexpectedly. A few months after the trial's conclusion, the lab conducted follow-up assessments. The results were mostly normal, but some of the changes in my physiology remained permanent. At first, fear and uncertainty gnawed at me. What did this mean for me? For us? Could a beta and a beta find balance? Or would the shift upset the delicate equilibrium we had built? Lucas sensed my turmoil immediately. That evening, he showed up at my apartment, carrying 2 steaming mugs of coffee and a soft grin. Talk to me, he urged gently. I exhaled, words stumbling like they always did around him. The trial, some of the changes, they're permanent. I don't know what that means for us. Lucas set the mugs on the table and took my hands in his. It means we adapt. It means we navigate it together. It doesn't change what we are. It doesn't change how I feel about you. Relief washed over me like sunlight breaking through clouds. I laughed softly, leaning into him. You always know what to say. Not always, he admitted with a wink. But I do know that I want to face everything with you. Every misstep, every triumph, every clumsy moment. It was in moments like these that I truly realized love wasn't about perfection or predetermined role sit, was about acceptance, patience, and shared courage. Lucas and I had stumbled into something far greater than either of us could have anticipated. A connection that transcended labels, tests, or societal expectations. The following weeks were filled with small victories and deepening intimacy. We explored the city hand in hand, laughed over minor disasters, and built a rhythm of life that was uniquely ours. One night, while cooking together in my tiny kitchen, flour dusted across our clothes and laughter echoed through the apartment. Lucas pulled me close, resting his forehead against mine. You know, he whispered, I think the universe was trying to be subtle, but it failed miserably. Because you and I, we were always meant to find each other. Clumsy, awkward, perfect chaos included. I smiled, my chest full, my heart brimming with gratitude. I think I finally understand what it feels like to be home. And it's with you. Lucas kissed me then, softly, slowly, as if sealing all the unspoken words and quiet confessions between us. The warmth of that kiss, the gentle pressure of his hands, the quiet heartbeat of our shared connection, it felt like every misstep, every trial, every fearful moment had led us here. Winter came, and with it, snow blanketed the city in soft white. Lucas and I walked through quiet streets, our breaths visible in the cold air, hands entwined, scarves tangling as we laughed. We paused at a small park, the frozen pond reflecting the pale glow of street lamps. "Promise me something," I said quietly, gazing at him. "Anything," he replied, voice gentle, earnest. "Promise we'll never forget. Even when life gets messy, even when things change, we stay. Like this, together." Lucas pulled me into a warm embrace, his hands firm and comforting. "I promise, Eli. Always." Spring followed, and the city bloomed with color. Lucas and I celebrated small milestones. Anniversaries of the trial's end, first shared victories at work, quiet nights of whispered confessions and laughter. Life was no longer a sequence of accidents, it was a series of intentional moments, crafted together, messy yet beautiful. And then came the moment I had unconsciously been waiting for. On a quiet summer evening, we sat on our favorite hilltop overlooking the city. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in shades of orange and lavender. Lucas turned to me, eyes glinting with a mixture of mischief and profound affection. "You ready for this?" he asked, his hand brushing mine. I nodded, though my heart raced. "As ready as I'll ever be." Lucas smiled, leaned in, and kissed Minute hurriedly, not clumsily, but with a slow, deliberate tenderness that spoke of months of trust, love, and shared growth. I melted into him, feeling every worry, every fear, every misstep dissolve in the heat of that connection. When we pulled back, he whispered, "From clumsy omega to unexpected beta. Who would have thought we'd end up here?" I laughed, leaning my forehead against his. "The universe has a sense of humor, and apparently a very good one." Lucas hugged me close, and together, we watched the city lights shimmer beneath us. A quiet, golden testament to a love forged through chaos, trials, and unwavering devotion. For the first time, I felt truly, irrevocably whole. Life continued, full of unpredictable twists, occasional missteps, and small, precious victories. But no matter what came our way, Lucas and I faced it together. Every stumble became an opportunity to lean on each other. Every challenge became a chance to grow closer. And every quiet moment, every shared smile, every gentle touch reminded us of the miracle we had found in each other. A love that was real, tender, and perfectly ours. And as the sun set behind the skyline one evening, casting a warm glow over the streets we had walked countless times together, I realized something profound. Life's chaos, its unpredictability, its trials, they weren't obstacles. They were the threads weaving a story far richer than I had ever dared to imagine. And Lucas? He was the thread I had been waiting for all along. We sat there, hand in hand, hearts beating in sync, and I knew without a doubt, whatever the world threw at us, whatever changes or missteps lay ahead, we would face them together. Always, because in the end, the clumsy omega and the unexpected beta had discovered the greatest truth of all: love, patient, messy, enduring love, could turn every stumble into a step toward happiness, every awkward moment into a memory, and every fear into a reason to hold each other just a little closer. And in that realization, in that quiet embrace atop our hill, life felt finally, beautifully complete. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.